Is this the car care nut?
Well, hello and welcome.
Big hug. Oh my
doing,
goodness.
brother?
Finally get to meet you after 3-4 years
Yes,
of
sir.
working on and off. I have nothing but the highest respect for you,
Thank you
Ahmed.
so much, David.
We're like almost like a brothers in some way. We always joke about that. But
Yes.
to be here, right here in Chicago, in your shop with all your beautiful restoration projects, it is
Thank you.
super inspirational for me.
Thank you so
and
much.
I almost in tears coming here on the way here. So
really
very
nice to
happy,
meet
guys.
you.
I know it's been long overdue that we get to meet
Yes.
and maybe work on something. So we get to work on a project today or a video today. And Ahmed and I thought, what can I answer for you guys? Well, I think the number one question people ask is, what can we do to keep the car as long as possible? I don't know. What do you think?
I think the number one thing is maintenance.
Yes.
So, first thing is expectation with cars. Folks will sometimes talk about their car. I want to have it forever. I want to drive it till the wheels fall off. That's never accurate.
Right.
No car we don't last forever.
Nothing lasts
Well,
forever.
unless you're David, because he is he is doing really good. But you got to tell us your secret. So nothing lasts forever, cars included. But
Yes.
you can do a lot to really get your car to last as long as possible, longer than the average. All has to do with maintenance, folks. I mean, you can over maintain a car, but I see a lot more under maintaining a car than over maintaining it. And I think the auto manufacturers do have a little bit
To do with that?
to do with that
Yes,
because they're trying to advertise the cars as low maintenance cars. We're going to have a few videos. If you're not familiar with my channel, the Car Care channel, we talk mainly about Toyota, Lexus, kind of mechanical repair. We're going to come up with a few videos in details, but I'll give you the brief of that. Manufacturers are trying to push their cars as low maintenance cars. That's not the case, because you really go reading into the maintenance guide, you're going to see that that's not the case. You really
Right.
got to stay on top of the maintenance. The most basic maintenance is an oil change.
Yeah, I don't want to call it kind of planned obsolescence, but there's a little bit of a kind of a balancing act between saying do all this maintenance versus, okay, yeah, minimum maintenance, it's not going to cost you very much to buy a car. And then when there's a problem, you know, it's kind of a bonus because they'll buy another new car, right?
Yes.
So again, nothing against what the manufacturers have come up with. It's a fair and a decent maintenance requirements, but we think we can do better. If you really want to keep the car for a very long time, maybe it's not possible for lifetime, but who knows? You know, my Lexus ST40 is 20 years old, in great shape. I think you know I bought a 1981 Cadillac Eldorado, which is
Yes, I've
over
seen
40
that.
years old. Not in great shape, but still drives, you know. And so the biggest question, I think, is what can average people, or rest of us, I should say, do to keep the car as long as possible, keep it running well without having a huge maintenance issues or reliability issues down the road. And I know it has a lot to do with the type of car you buy, but
Yes.
probably maintenance has as much or maybe even more influence on the overall
Yes.
long-term care. But before we go too far, I just want to see if maybe Ahmed can just show us this particular area.
Yes.
I know we can't show
So
the rest of the shop. because the
If you are
customers
not familiar with our channel, this is kind of the recording studio. This is where I work as well on cars. We have a whole other section, which is the main shop. This has a clean room where we build engines. Right now it is the pizza room. Show you in a bit.
We just had a pizza for
This
lunch.
is where we keep kind of the projects that are in process. We're still inspecting them and getting into them, or cars that are we really want to preserve them even from dust. This is the area that doesn't have dust. This is a 96 LS400. We really specialize in that Lexus LS, especially the older ones. And this is a 96, beautiful car. We haven't gotten into it yet, but something about, I want to use this car as an example, same thing with the one next to it. There is a rhetoric going on in the internet about quality of cars going down. And folks, I think folks are learning about this because of social media and everything, but that's been going on for a while. Cost, it all comes down to cost. But the second thing I want to bring to your attention is this LS400, at 30,000 miles, at 60,000 miles, it required so much maintenance that if you ask a new car owner today to do the similar maintenance, they will not go
They won't
for
buy
it.
the car anymore. Yes.
But these cars were maintained. This car got transmission service every 30,000 miles. It had a lot of maintenance that needed to be done. Spark plug wires, and folks did that maintenance. They didn't mind it. But today, I feel like car owners are like resistant towards doing the maintenance, because I'll say this: buy a good car that was well made with good intentions, not a disposable car. Maintain it like people maintain these cars back in the day, and you're gonna be surprised that they actually are still the same recipe. That's
Yeah, I guess classic example would be the oil change, which you and I talk about all the time. And again, I did a video on that one, but if you go and follow the owner's manual, it's 10, 12,000 miles, sometimes even longer, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the brand. And Ahmed talks about the 5,000 miles. I talked about maybe even 3,000 miles, depending on the severity of the driving and the type of car you have. So that's like one of the first thing we have to figure out is what is the optimal cost versus time, in terms of mileage, in terms of timing. If you don't drive the car very often, do we still change it once a year? Do we change it every 6 months? So I think we'll come back to that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's finish taking a quick tour around here.
Let's do it.
Because I'm just so excited to be here with Ahmed, and we're in Chicago, obviously. Again, if you don't know Ahmed, I think you probably all know him already, but he is the the world's superhero when it comes to maintenance and when it comes to repair and anything to do with Toyota, but also non-Toyota cars as well. I mean, this is the only person you should be listening to get real advice. And so I'm really, really honored to have you in my channel, but to be here. What else do we have here?
So this is a 2000 LS400. It's beautiful LS400. I think it only has 65,000 miles. Few things, nothing major. It had a weird electrical problem because of rodent damage, but that's taken care of. Now we're proceeding, just needs some maintenance. Again, maintenance. Mainly timing belt, few suspension components, whatnot. Beautiful car. I am a big fan of LS430s, as you know. I can unlock it here.
Yeah, I've got lots of memories because most of you guys know I was born and raised in Japan, and so I grew up around these cars, and lots of memories of classic older Toyota / Lexus models that, we always, when you're a kid, you say, hey, my dad can't afford that Crown or that Lexus, but I wish they could have it because I want to get a riding one. So to me, these are like just inspirational cars to me. They don't make cars like they used to make these cars, right?
We didn't have all the safety features, all the infotainment, all the technology, and everything that, some of it is really good. I have to admit that. But they didn't have all that, so they spent their entire budget on quality of things. Back in the day, luxury was how well the leather is, how insulated the cabin is, how luxury was like materials and feel.
Real material.
Today, luxury is features and technology and gizmos. So it's just what the buyers want. It's not like the manufacturer, they want to cut corners. No, they need to sell cars, and I get it, it's a business. But unfortunately, when you see these cars, they are so nice and they hold up so well. But at the same time, they're ancient. I mean, there are certain things in these cars that are ancient. If you look at it, this is so complicated because of lack of technology.
And I'm just looking at the body panel. I don't have the measuring tool here, but it looks like about 3 millimeter all the way through, and it's a perfect alignment. The paint job was much thicker back in those days. They used different paint job back in those days also. So the reflection of the light, the type of paint they use makes it look different. There's a lot less orange peel with this type of paint versus the newer eco-friendly paint that just doesn't have the same depth, as some of these older paint, and they're just nice and thick. And the panels were thick. Everything's metal. There's no aluminum on this. So it's just the whole car feels solid. So I love some of the older Lexus LS.
I have to ask you, David.
Yes.
When did Toyota switch from single stage paint to what we have today? Do you know?
I don't know the exact timing, but the biggest change in technology for paint, as you know, is when they went from a solvent-based paint to water-based paint. That happened many years ago. And then they also changed the paint, the actual drying process. So it used to be you paint, then you dry, you paint, you dry, like the booth. But now you paint, and then you paint, and you paint, and you dry. And it's faster, cheaper, but you don't get the same durability of the paint. And they try to then, of course, come up with some fancy paint such as a matte. They made a lot of change in technology with the paint. It's also almost all robotics now. versus in the past it was partial robotics, maybe 50% robotics, and the rest was applied by hand. So they make sure that some of the underneath and behind the doors and stuff like that's all painted. But now they have cut that out a little bit. So you only get the clear coat and the second layer of paint in where you see, and everything else underneath, even sometime behind the door when you open the rear gate, there's no clear coat, right, to save money. So those are some of the things. Unfortunately, due to cutting cost and to save time, that's what they're doing now. Yeah. But obviously the older base paint not eco-friendly, so they had to change it, but they lasted longer, right?
Yes,
the paints are more durable. Yeah.
There's always a trade-off.
A little bit trade-off. What else do we have here? What is this?
This is a beautiful SC400. It has been in our shop for a very long time, and if you are the owner of this car, we're finally working on it. Parts availability is a problem with the older cars, especially this era of Lexus. So this era of Lexus, they had a lot of firsts, and we're noticing parts. See, most other manufacturers, anything over 10 years old, you're gonna have a lot of discontinued parts. Lexus is not one of those companies. I mean, we are just starting to discontinue heavily on this. This is a 95.
Beautiful.
This is interesting, as you still get parts for this easily.
And it's original paint and everything.
As far as I know,
original,
this is all original.
So I think some of you guys know I bought a 2004 Lexus SC430, which will be a car they introduced after the 400. But I still have a big, love for this series of SC. Yes. But this is basically a Lexus version of the Toyota Supra.
Yes.
It shares some of the body components and the powertrain, and it's just it's a beauty. You don't find them. You don't find them in good shape anymore.
Yeah. And the 400 is a special one because this is the 1UZ FE, the original 1UZ. So that 96 actually has the same 1UZ FE as this one. I'll open the hood for folks to see the difference. On this one, so you notice they both have a 1UZ FE. This is the VVTi version. This is the second generation of this engine, which is vastly improved over the original one. However, folks will remember the original one as the one that had the wine glass ad from Lexus back in the day. This was that actual engine.
Right, that's right.
They're similar internal, but this is a lot more high tech. This is the VVTi one. It's actually the better one, the longer lasting one. Despite what anybody says, that is a much better engine to live with in 2024. And the reason for that is I can take you to the SC, which is actually torn apart. You can see how much more there is to it. A lot more.
Back in those, they actually put the engine coating here.
Very proud of it.
Right? They have the engine coating here as well. I never see that in new models.
You don't see that anymore. There's not an emphasis on the engine model anymore.
You can even tell just looking at the actual panels. You guys probably know I'm a body engineer by trade, but the thickness of the metal, how they did the spot weld. It's all spot welded back in those days. Now they do adhesive welding, which is just like a fancy word for gluing. So a lot of stuff is glued together now using structural adhesive, and they're not actually bonded by welding anymore. So there just isn't the same strength, and of course the metal is way thicker. It's probably 30% thinner now, all the materials, plus they're aluminum now. So and that's why some of the Tacoma owners, I think it happens on the Tundra sometimes too, when you go over rough road, the hood is bouncing. That's because one is aluminum, and second, they thinned it out the middle so much that you can't help but vibrate. You'll never see that on these older cars. No. It's just, kind of metallurgy thing.
I feel like it's not all about cost cutting sometimes. I mean, do you really need this hood to be this heavy? No, that's the question.
Yeah, it doesn't.
The more weight you have, the bigger engine and more power you need to move this car,
weight loss,
more emissions you're going to produce. So there's also a secondary reason behind that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's always nice to look at these because they're just built like tanks, and that's the feeling of them.
But we got to go back to this one because I'm in love with this SC400.
It's a beautiful car.
The paint, I think it's an original paint. It's almost too good to be original paint.
I want to say it is original paint.
I can probably tell if I look inside whether it's original paint or not. You can usually tell, telltale signs around the door. It looks original to me. I don't see any kind of like masking Sometimes they don't mask it properly. This looks original to me.
Yeah.
Beautiful paint.
I mean, if we have a old paint last, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
So this is the SC400 engine. It's not torn apart, but partial.
Wow, look at that.
So the cool thing about the SC400, the engine sat so far back, you had so much space in the front. They did that
Wow.
intentionally. This
It's
one,
also because it's got a long hood,
yeah,
right?
it does have a long
Body
hood. So
design.
the biggest thing about this car is this has a hydro fan, so it doesn't have a mechanical fan or electric.
I
This
see,
was one of
okay.
the biggest thing, and that was the biggest holdup. It's a unique hydro fan to this model. There are some Japanese models that share a similar hydro fan system, but it's very unique in the U.S. Parts are very difficult for it.
Well, and can I ask you what you're doing with this engine, Ahmed?
So this engine has a lot of oil leaks, and the main thing I brought it in here is going to be a coolant leak. So I am suspect that someone was here in the past,
Right.
and if you look right here, oh, maybe give you a little bit of light. Right here, this was not cleaned properly. You see how there's sealer there?
Yeah.
That's
I
where
see.
exactly it leaked.
Oh,
So we had a
interesting.
very large coolant leak
Wow.
from this car. There's a lot of oil leaks. So
Yeah.
doing valve covers, we're doing a full timing belt set. We also had some leaks from the hydrofan lines in the pump. Fortunately, these are not available, so we had to get used ones. I tried to find a rebuild kit, not available, because this is kind of a unique setup to this.
Interesting. Well, it's a cool car, regardless,
It's a
right?
beautiful
it's
car.
Just a beautiful vehicle. and
Beautiful car.
If I didn't find my ST430, because I would have bought the ST400, that's what I was looking for originally, but I just couldn't find one that's in good shape.
They are
And then we have
beautiful cars.
one more, which is it's also like, it looks like a brand new
Yes.
car. Brand new car. Tell me
This
more.
is a car we have not featured on our channel yet, so you'll see it in details underneath it and everything. This is a 1985 FJ60, beautiful car. I believe it's been restored before, but it's kind of an older restoration. It's in great shape, body-wise, interior, but it does need some mechanical work. Engine needs some work. Carbs need some work, or carb single. The front hub needs some work. Brakes, little stuff, slowly. This is obviously not a car you drive every day, but slowly we're working on getting parts. Parts are now, you're getting to the 80s, parts become very difficult, and that's what we're working on slowly. It's a beautiful car. It's really restored correctly, not kind of modified and this. No, it's all correct. I really like this car. It's just-
I was trying to remember or figure out where the Land Cruisers were built back in the day. I think it was still built in Yoshiwara plant where the current Land Cruisers are built. They've been building Land Cruiser there for a long time.
This may be also from
But I'm
there.
not quite 100% sure.
This is an original US model. This
US
is not an
model,
import. So
Just amazing.
this is beautiful.
Quality, beautiful.
This is
vehicle.
one of my favorite features on this car. Is the hook.
Look at that.
See, we were not shy to put hooks very exposed like that
That's right.
back in those days. Seems like now we are, same thing with, like, nobody minded having visible bolts
That's true too. Yeah.
on lights and whatnot. Do that today and the manufacturer will never hear the end of it.
And back in those days, they actually imprinted the date, right? The year of the model year. They put it right on each of the lens, front or back, so you can figure out the year that way too. So beautiful example. So all these cars are obviously being restored to some degrees, but at the same time, they could maybe last even longer. They could last forever. I shouldn't say forever, but a lifetime if they are kept in a certain maintenance regime.
Yes.
So what do we do for those people who want to keep the car for a long time, maybe not lifetime, but let's say 20 years, 25 years. They don't want to spend arm and a leg, but they want to be fair in terms of balancing the cost versus time, but spend it for a long time. Let's start with the oil change. What do we do?
The earlier you do it, the better. Whatever the manufacturer tells you today, half it.
Yeah.
If you tell you 10,000, go 5,000. If they tell you 15,000, go 5,000.
Yeah.
Folks, I see this all the time. People are saying, well, oils have gotten advanced and everything have changed. Let me tell you, the only thing I've changed, we have great marketing departments. That's the only thing I've changed. Yes, oil technology have changed, but so are the demands from these oils in the engines. You have higher compression engines, tight tolerances. timing chain engines have taken hold. You have engines that have, tiny engine makes a lot of power, turbocharging, supercharging.
That's right.
The demands on this oil have changed as well. It's not, we're not putting the modern oils in old engines that were very relaxed. We're putting them in high
use, high pressure,
high maintenance engines.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way.
Yeah, they're very demanding engines. So I remember talking to a production leader that makes the Nissan GTR engine. It's a special engine. I went to that factory quite a few times, and he's a good friend of mine, Mr. Takumi. His name is called Takumi.
I watched that video. I love that video.
Yeah.
That was
and
very
we're
nice.
still good friends. I'm gonna see him in a month or so. And he actually said 2,000 or 3,000 miles, which will be a little bit too extreme because you're not driving a high performance car like the GTR. But he says the same thing. It's nothing to do with quality of the oil or how good the oil viscosity is or how much it's retaining its properties. At the end of the day, the oil has to take away some of the debris or anything that's left in the engine, and that has to be drained out with the oil, right? So, because I get so many comments about this one where people are saying, hey, the oil will last 20,000 miles or whatever because the oil is so good these days, especially synthetic. Why do you have to change so often? So this is like back and forth. I keep getting these questions. I don't know. What do you say to those people? Who say
All
that?
I can say is so when shop owners or mechanics or people, engine builders, when they tell you this, change your oil, the earlier the better. Folks usually argue, well, you're just trying to get more business to your shop. The shop makes no profit at all when we do an oil change. Every oil change that comes through here is a break even because by the time you factor in the equipment, the bills and all that, we don't.
You can't make money from oil change.
It's not all about money, but it's business. We got bills to pay, we got families to feed.
Course,
but the shop is most profitable when we build an engine that was neglected.
Right.
So why would it be my best interest to just let people neglect their cars?
Exactly. Yeah.
And just rake in the profits later? But that's not right. We're about what's right. What's right is maintain your car, because I see this all the time. Cars burning oil. All kinds of problems with variable valve timing. Even in the side of coolant, leaks, head gasket leaks, all caused by just following the maintenance in the book without reading the fine print.
Right.
And something about manufacturer recommending intervals. So folks will also argue, oh, but the design engineers of this engine deemed it so. That's not the case, folks. The maintenance in the book is the minimum required maintenance to maintain your warranty.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Are you trying to get your warranty to run out, then you sell the car? Follow the maintenance of the book. Otherwise...
So you heard it right here from Ahmed, who not only restores cars, but takes engine apart all the time, but also my own experience working as an engineer. So let's clarify this once and for all. I think 5,000 miles, which is about 8,000 kilometers, is what we recommend, or take the owner's manual and approximately half the, whatever the numbers they have, half it. But if it's more than 5,000, you can stick with 5,000. I think we both agree that if you're not keeping for a car for very long, or you're just leasing it for a few years, then you don't necessarily have to do this. Because
would be nice for the next owner.
Would be nice for the next owner. Yeah, but legally speaking, and in terms of meeting the warranty requirements, you don't have to. But I wouldn't wait like 12,000 miles or whatever the new recommendation might be. That's way too long, even if you're not keeping a car long. So, sort of if you can't do 5,000 miles because it's too much, or you drive long distances, and that would be like once a month, hopefully not, then maybe we could stretch it to 7,000-8,000 miles, but maybe that's about it, right?
Yeah, I would. I just saw an ad, I won't name the company, oil company. They have 3 of their bottles of like branded oil. One of them says 10,000, one of them 15,000, one of them 25,000. I'm like, I'm sorry, did the oil company design this engine? That they're just making a blanket statement? No one size fits all.
Yeah.
I don't like that. You got to look at the engine you have. What kind of operating conditions are you using this engine in? That's what you determine. And the manufacturer can determine that, by the way, just so you know that, because the manufacturer doesn't know if you're going to be driving on highway all day long, or you're going to do short trips all the time and fill that oil with fuel. They don't know that. They're giving you a suggestion, a recommendation. And then the manufacturer of the oil also doesn't know. You see all oil companies, they'll put an engine on a dyno or put a car on a dyno, run it for 1 million miles. Look, the oil looks great. The engine looks brand new. That's not a realistic test.
That's not
There's no
realistic.
weather involved. There's no people involved. There's no human error involved. You're just simulating an unrealistic situation. Nobody will drive many miles in one go like that. Just changing the oil in a lab. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
That's just a great advertisement for stuff.
So I think most manuals also have a regular maintenance and a severe driving or severe condition
Or special
maintenance.
operating conditions,
Yeah.
sometimes they call them.
And that most of us who lives in city and have stop and go are probably classified as severe, but we're changing oil like normal. And honestly, there's really no one, very few people will be driving car under normal conditions. It's always going to be severe condition. So if there is a severe recommendation in the manual, follow that. That will be closer to what we're talking about, right?
It's all about the maintenance.
What about people ask about synthetic versus regular engine oil? Should they even bother with synthetic if you're going to change it so often anyway?
Most of the newer cars, and just some viewers may not be aware of this, any oil that starts with zero, it is a synthetic.
It's all synthetic.
You can't
anyway.
have a zero oil that is not synthetic.
Yeah.
The benefit of switching from regular oil to synthetic, of course, are there on a car that doesn't require it. Say it needs 5W30. You switch to synthetic. Synthetic oil is better in harsh conditions. But if you're really changing that oil on time, you're the kind of person that follows 3,000-mile oil changes, go with the regular oil because you're just throwing your money down the drain.
Yeah.
You're maintaining your car properly. Synthetic oils for high performance engines or like turbo engines, they're much better. They kind of withstand that harsh environment better than conventional oil. But if you maintain your car right, it's not really required. That's the God honest truth.
So I think what we're saying is that if you're going to try to buy an expensive oil, synthetic oil, and try to make it as long as possible in interval, it's better to buy cheaper oil and change more often, right?
Very much so.
It's the frequency that matters more. So again, 5,000 miles or roughly 8,000 kilometers, the engine oil doesn't matter so much, the oil itself, as long as you're changing it frequently. That's the thing that matters the most. And I assume that you're also recommending that the filter gets changed every single time? Or?
Yes, every time.
So every time you're changing oil, you gotta also change the filter. Some people do keep the filter for every 2 engine oil change, but right now it's just, for the small cost associated with it, just get rid of the oil filter.
All I'll tell you on that one, sorry for the interruption.
That's okay.
All I'll tell you on that one is, do you really want to rest the life of your oil, of your engine on a $6 to $15 oil filter? That's your call.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's a very simple solution for that one. Yeah. Okay, so that's engine oil. What's the next most misunderstood maintenance thing?
Coolant.
Coolant, okay.
So coolant is becoming a very
Do you want to just show the viewers
bad idea.
Where the coolant might
so
be?
this in this particular car, engine coolant cools the engine. It's in addition to the oil, by the way, the oil also cools the engine. Engine coolant there was a time, like this time period, this car and this car, coolant got replaced every 30,000 miles.
Yes.
Nobody complained about that.
Yeah.
Things were great.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing intervals of 100 to 150,000 miles.
Which is almost like a life of a car for many people, right?
And some folks will say, well, the chemical composition of the coolant have changed and they're more durable. Can I translate that to you? Nothing changed.
Coolant is still coolant.
Well, are you going to run 100,000 miles on the coolant and be fine? Sure. But are you? Because all of a sudden the head gasket is leaking, this is leaking, this coolant, this hose is leaking, this water pump is leaking, and people wonder why. Cars' quality have come down. No, maintenance quality have come down too, not just the cars.
So once again, the material itself, like engine oil or coolant, haven't changed all that much. What's synthetic, of course,
They've changed, of course, but so are the demands from these engines.
But the demand has become demanding, I should say, because of the type of engine we have, the type of driving
materials.
This
is a cast iron block. Newer cars are all aluminum blocks.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the same operating environment for this fluid to work. So the fluids have come a long way. So have the engine and their demand of these fluids.
Yes.
And that's.
So what is your recommendation for coolant? How often?
Coolant, it varies by manufacturer.
Okay.
But for Toyota, this is what we specialize in, and Lexus, 50,000 miles, 5 years. Okay. Don't go over that. That's
50,000 miles or 5 years. Don't go over that. Oh, actually, that reminds me, just to go back on the engine oil, if the 5,000 miles is not reached within 12 months.
That's a big problem.
Right?
That's the next problem.
Yeah, we forgot to talk about that earlier.
6 months.
6 months.
6 months on the engine oil, regardless. Yeah. This is the thing. If you have to spend up to $100, even $150 every 6 months on your car, that is a wise choice.
The cheap insurance, I think.
That's $300 a year. You're well above You're well below every single cost of ownership of a car.
Yes. It's the cheapest thing you can do.
Yes.
That has the biggest impact.
Because the problem with oil over time, folks will say, well, it's just sitting there, what's gonna happen to it? Fuel dilution is a problem with new engines.
Right,
And it is something that happens to any engine, especially with direct injection. We're getting back to fuel dilution. You have so much fuel in this oil that just sits there, it's gonna break down the oil.
Yeah.
So you wanna get it out. And with ethanol and fuel, it's adding
Even
a
worse.
little bit of a corrosive
worse,
factor to it. Get it out.
So 6 months or 5,000 miles,
Yes.
whichever comes first, basically, for the engine oil. Back to the coolant, 50,000 miles, which is about 80,000 kilometers, or 5 years, whichever comes first again, right?
Yep, same thing.
Yeah, and that's is it about half of what's in the manual?
About half or 1/3 in some cases.
1/3 in some cases. So, do you need to do, some places wants to offer you coolant flush and special rinsing, and you know how they try to sell you some special additives or special cleaning stuff. What do you think of that?
This is where we'll go back to the basics.
Yeah.
We're not going to go carry it and get overboard. Drain the coolant, fill it, we're good.
That's all.
If you're
That's all.
maintaining your car,
Yeah.
there should be no reason for debris to be present so
Right.
that you need to completely flush the system. That's the main thing. I never do flushes in my shop because I think they're a waste of money.
Yeah.
And with modern cars, you got to be careful with valving and whatnot because the
Right.
flushing will push all the debris into these electronic valves,
Right.
and now you have problems.
Right.
So I don't really like flushing stuff.
And I agree 100%. You don't need to flush. I
A
think
flush,
those
in
are-
my opinion, is a repair
Yeah.
of a contamination, not a regular maintenance.
Yeah. So just drain it, fill it, which you can, which is not a difficult work to do. Not too super expensive. Coolants aren't expensive, so don't stretch it out to 100, 150,000 miles. Again, 50,000 miles for coolant. So that's the second most important thing. What's the third one?
Third one is actually the last one. Everything else we can live with.
Okay,
Transmissions.
transmission. Okay.
Lifetime fluid. You hear that all the time.
Yes.
What is the lifetime? The day one after the warranty ends and mile one after the warranty ends? That's usually the case, folks. With Toyota, you can really push these transmissions. Aisin does a great job with their transmissions. Not all of them, but the majority of them.
Aishin is a Japanese transmission manufacturer, by the way, and it's quite a huge company, partly owned by Toyota, and I've been to their factories quite a few times. One of the best transmission companies in the world, actually.
I think you probably pronounce it right. I'll keep pronouncing it wrong.
Aishin.
Aishin.
Yeah.
We'll learn from the expert here. So Aishin, did I say that right?
It's like it's I, so I like AI, I Shin, S-H-I-N.
Okay.
Yeah, even though spelled S-I-N.
Okay.
Sounds like S-H-I-N.
Okay. So Aishin,
Aishin.
in my opinion, Aishin and ZF, they're kind of the better transmission
Two of the
manufacturers
best
today.
transmission companies. Yeah.
With Toyota transmissions and Lexus, you're not going to have many issues. Some of them have their chronic issues and known problems, but majority of them are fine. Change the fluid every 60,000 miles. We're not talking about a flush and multiple. Just drain
Just
what's in the
drain
pan, fill it. I know
yeah.
it's not the full capacity, but that's enough to keep the fluid fresh. 60,000 miles, 6 years, you're not going to have issues. Their transmission are robust. They last a long time. You'll get to 200,000 miles on the original fluid. But the shift quality will not be good. You run a very high risk of torque converter shutter, losing reverse, very abrupt shifting, and losing overdrive. These are some of the problems that we see. Solenoid problems, very late engagements, all this from contamination.
Right.
gonna
Yeah. So
happen.
same idea again.
Again.
It's not about trying to use the oil for as long as possible. It's not expensive oil. It is a little bit more involved than either engine oil or coolant. But 60,000 miles or 6 years,
Yes.
right?
Try not to keep it around there.
Around that time. And then, again, owner's recommendation is probably, well, it's some people say
Never.
lifetime.
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 But this car-
What is lifetime anyway?
Length of the warranty, I'll guarantee you that. This car, for example, ultra reliable car, and people today say this is one of the best cars made. 30,000 miles per the
Wow.
book for a transmission.
Interesting. And
There is that. And we wonder why these cars are still around.
Exactly,
Because
yeah.
people took care of them.
Yeah, yeah. So again, it's not over maintenance. I think it's actually the right maintenance to do, and somehow car companies figured out a way to stretch it for as long as possible to minimize the cost for the consumers, and to give them a bit of a kind of hope that maintenance costs can be very, very low. But again, it's not a huge amount of cost to do engine oil and the coolant and the transmission oil. twice as often as what's recommended in the manual. Because like you said, even for transmission oil, we're talking about 60,000 miles. That's good 3 to 5 years of driving, right? It's not a lot to ask. So those three are the most important thing.
I'll tell you the last thing. This is kind of to wrap everything up, to kind of complete the circle. If you want your modern car to last as the older, better built cars, well, maintain your modern car like an old, better built car, and you'll see. That's all I'll tell you.
As simple as that, right? Because a lot of stuff have changed, but a lot of stuff have also not changed at all. Is there anything else that people should just think about? Any other fluid that people should check? Brake fluid?
All the other fluids are not as, we're not seeing as catastrophic of issues because of. You can follow the manufacturer recommendation, but these three are the top ones that are normally neglected, and they severely affect your reliability past year 10 and year 15 is when you start seeing that.
So if the owner's manual has the normal driving and the severe rating for other fluids, again, I think we would say follow the severe, which is probably about 30 to 40% more frequent than the normal way for all the other type of fluid or any other type of maintenance. What about non-fluid stuff like spark plugs? Again, it's one of those things that...
Spark plugs, the manufacturers have been good about kind of staying true to their actual interval. Okay. We haven't seen inflation in that. Like, we're not trying to see, because spark plugs usually have very long intervals. The earliest is 40, 60, or 120 in some cases. That's a long interval.
That's really long, yeah.
They don't want to, they didn't change that yet. We haven't had lifetime spark plug stuff. I hope I'm not around for that day, but I know it's coming, unless we go electric and we're done with spark plugs. But spark plugs usually follow the manual. 40 for turbo engines, 60 for the FKS engines with a direct injection, and then 120 for the older stuff or stuff that has no direct or turbo. Okay,
so for spark plug, you get a break there. You can follow the owner's manual, maybe a little bit more frequent than the owner's manual once again.
Watch the time on spark plugs.
Timing-wise is more important.
There's a 10 to 12 year period of spark plugs.
That's a long time to be using
what we worry about spark plugs when they get to that 10, 12 year mark is, it's not the spark plug itself is working properly, seizing is what we worry about.
Right,
so
okay.
If you get to 10, 12 years, your original plugs, and you have very low miles, might not even be a bad idea. I mean, if you're really trying to penny crunch here, take the spark plugs out, clean the thread, and put it back. Same plugs, it's okay. But we just don't want that plug to be there
Staying there for a long, long time. Yeah, anything else we missed? What about brakes?
Brakes as needed. Use original parts.
That's all based on the actual use, so that's pretty straightforward.
Everything else, filters as needed. Everything else as needed.
Now, I'm going to add one more thing, which is not directly related to powertrain or chassis, but it's tires. I have a problem with people trying to keep the tires for as long as possible, mainly because people don't realize when the tread is, let's say, 80% worn out, that tire is as good as, actually, it's basically useless in the wintertime, in slippery conditions, and people try to stretch it out for as long as possible, and when it's really, really right down to the bare bones, then they switch the tires, not realizing they're just about to have an accident because the first rain or first snow and a little bit of oil slick on the road, and that tire is basically useless. So from a sort of a mechanical engineer's perspective, my perspective, one of my biggest pet peeve is people trying to keep the tire for a long time, also not checking the tire pressure properly, not inflating it properly, because you should know that in the wintertime, the tire pressure will go down by 3 to 4 PSI. You're gonna double check it during wintertime, spring and summer. Underinflated or overinflated will prematurely wear out the tires as well. But don't wait until it's all worn out. I will replace it when it's about 75% worn out. And then when you replace it, ideally replace all 4 tires. Don't just replace 1 or 2. That's kind of makes it difficult to balance the tire itself. So tires, that's one big thing. Also, kind of keep in mind that when the tire companies say below 7 degrees Celsius, so I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, they'll say the tires. they'll say that the tires are useless in winter, so you have to put winter tires. That's actually a bit of a lie. Also, it's not like tires at that temperature suddenly goes hard and brittle and it's useless. It's actually a gradual change. So right down. So I'm sorry, I'm talking about Celsius here, but as you get closer to the freezing temperature, the all-season tires or summer tires will begin to harden a little bit. But it's not like a abrupt black and white thing, so you don't need to worry about trying to change it to winter tires right off the bat at the temperature change, but as you get closer to freezing temperature, it just have less effectiveness. But the newer tires have not just all-season capability, but there are many all-weather tires, which means that it's actually 4-season, not 3-season, and it's got the 3 mountain symbol, peak symbol, I should say, so you can run them as winter tires. Those are the tires I recommend now, but change them up when it's about 75% worn out, and then you're good to go. So that's sort of my sort of 2 cents worth here, input, because the tires are often misunderstood.
I'll say one thing about tires, age. I see this mistake all the time. Tires will have tread depth. They're 10 years old. That is as dangerous as having bold tires.
Yes.
Tires are rubber, and they get brittle over time, and they develop cracks, and some of them, they lose their integrity. You hit anything a little bit hard, they'll pop.
They'll rupture, yeah.
Usually the recommendation for tires, 5-6 years,
Yeah.
recycle them.
I think 7 years is the bare max, it's the absolute max, I should say. Just don't leave them that long, and which actually applies to spare tires too, right?
Yeah.
Most companies don't have full-size spare tires anymore, but if you do, you gotta unfortunately change them up at 7-year mark also.
Yes.
Last thing is just from a rust proofing perspective, rinse off the salt, obviously, even in the wintertime. Ahmed, in terms of rusting underneath, any recommendation for that?
Coating, but coating needs to ideally gets done when the car is new, where it hasn't had rust already. If you already have rust, you're gonna kind of slow things down, but it's already there. You can't get rid of it. But coating cars when they're new is recommended.
Still helpful.
Much more in body and frame trucks than it is on regular unibody cars. But the unibody cars, I'm seeing manufacturers kind of skip on sealing this, sealing that here and there. It's not a terrible idea if you live in a kind of a salt-heavy area, like Chicago, Land area here. I know you guys in Canada. Certain areas are, Vancouver is good, but certain areas of Canada it gets really bad.
Yeah.
So coating is still recommended, not as much for unibody cars as it was in the past, but it's still a recommendation. But for body and frame trucks, definitely.
It's almost required, right?
Almost required.
And almost forgot, in terms of interior, don't forget to use some leather treatment or other treatment to prevent the UV from affecting the materials. Get a seat cover if you want. That's probably the best way if you're in a very bright, sunny weather all the time, like if you're in California or you live in Hawaii or something, or elsewhere in the world where the sun is really strong. You gotta find a way to block the UV so your leather, your plastic do not get brittle. They've gotten a lot better.
Yes.
The materials engineering has improved a lot over the last 20 years. And you'll be shocked how good they are now in fighting off any kind of UV impact. You still have to find a way to prevent that, so either you apply some of the treatment, or best is just cover them up with some kind of a seat cover or a dash cover. I think that's my last advice I have for you guys. Any last comments in trying to keep the cars for a lifetime?
Take care of them and they'll take care of you. I'll put it at that. And maintain your new car like we did the old cars that now we are praising for being long lasting, as I'll tell you.
I think we love cars, we all do, and even though I tend to change my cars often, I still follow this more of a more stringent requirement because I want to keep the car in the best condition possible. And I know that dealers and friends who buy my cars, when I change them, they're so happy that my cars look brand new, even though it might be 3-4 years old. So there's many reasons to keep the cars clean and reliable, and most of all, you're going to enjoy the car more. If the more reliable they are, you don't get frustrated because something happened, your car breaks down. Those are things that can really, take time, and those are things that make you feel like I need to change the car right now. I can't stand this car anymore. But if the cars are reliable, you're going to enjoy it longer. So that's the best gift, I think, for everyone. But most of all, the best gift for me today is to be able to come here, meet my good friend Ahmed. We're brothers in spirit and soul, and we share the same passion for cars and same passion for wanting to reach out to you. So you learn something from us. We're not doing this for money. I shouldn't say it that way, but you know what I mean. Our heart is in the right place, and we're doing this because we want to educate you, help you enjoy your car and your car life. And we love this. This is all what we do. So we either fix cars or we are talking about cars. In my case, sometimes talking about the future cars as well. And we love doing this. So please let us know if you want us to do more of a collaboration. Think of more excuses to come to Chicago, or
you're always welcome.
Or get Ahmed to come to Vancouver, or even better, take Ahmed to Japan. That's my next big milestone.
I'm down. I'm down. Let's do it.
We'll take your whole family to Japan, find the ways to enjoy Japan, and visit some Toyota factory, and take Ahmed to Toyota City. There's actual name when you cross this little bridge. It said, "Welcome to Toyota City." That would be
very cool.
very cool, very inspirational. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Ahmed, for being on my channel. Most of all, thank you for your great friendship and always being supportive for me, for everyone else on the channel. Please give a thumbs up. Please go and check out Ahmed's channel. I'm sure you know his channel already, but if not, he's the best person to hear about and talk about and listen about maintenance and everything else. And if you also enjoy our channel, either mine or him, give us a thumbs up and make some comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much.